going to be, one of his enduring legacies that will be sorely missed. Meanwhile, there is also information that is coming in that the mortal remains of Arun Jaitley will be taken to the Kailash Colony residence at about 2:30 p.m. in roughly another half an hour's time from now. Tomorrow at 12 noon, his body will be taken to the headquarters, and at 2 p.m. it is expected Nigambodh Ghat for cremation. This is information that has just come in terms of the preparations that are presently underway in terms of the last rites for Arun Jaitley, who's passed away just a little while back at the AIIMS hospital. Now, Karthike, I also want you to dwell a little bit about, the other aspect that not a lot of people would be aware of, because we've seen his persona on the television. We know him as a politician. We know him as an astute politician, a master strategist for the BJP. But sitting through those Arun Jaitley classes that you spoke about within the parliament, he was one of the most affable politicians, someone who recognized the power of the media, but at the same time, someone who is open to taking questions from the media, unlike, the political class that is now emerging.
Not only that, you see, it was very easy to call Arun Jaitley. There were a number of times, when Mr. Jaitley would call and say that, I'm getting confused between you and your namesake in this media. And I would tell this to Mr. Jaitley, sir, you can write Karthike Wion, or, you can write any other thing. So, these are the conversations people could have with Mr. Jaitley. Mr. Jaitley would remember to ask you about your parents in case he knew. Mr. Jaitley would ask about your wife if she is in journalism. Mr. Jaitley had this habit of, if meeting during lunch hours, offer you a lunch. These were the things about Mr. Jaitley. I remember that when I was covering the meeting between Jilani and Manmohan Singh, when both of them were watching an Indo-Pakistan cricket match during UPA2, after finishing my work, I went to a restaurant for a very late night meal. I saw Mr. Jaitley sitting there in his friends there, and he was having a hearty Punjabi meal there, despite knowing that it's not good for him. Atal Bihari Vajpayee was also known for his fondness of food. So, whenever there used to be sort of a lunch meeting, every journalist would come there because he knew that the food would be ordered from Purani Delhi. So, everyone would knew that you would either get a good, authentic non-vegetarian food from Old Delhi or authentic Punjabi food from the same area. And, people would line up there. That was Mr. Jaitley. Jaitley was also known for Arun Jaitley was known for not repeating his shawls in winter session of the parliament. He was very fond of jamdari. He was very fond of his shawls, and he would say that, well, I have not repeated my shawls. That was Arun Jaitley. Some people found it very odd. I remember. And he would say that, well, this is my hard-earned money. He was the first politician to have got a Vartu phone in Rajya Sabha, and he showed it. He said, not only I have a Vartu, but I have gifted one Vartu to my wife also. Right. And at that point of time, Vartu was a mobile phone where it was price on request. But Mr. Jaitley did not hide it, because he was a successful lawyer. And that was the philosophy of Mr. Jaitley when he said, well, it's well-earned money. I've done it honestly, and I'll spend it on myself. So he represented a different class of politician, and he evolved over a period of time. It was not what Mr. Jaitley I saw as a very junior reporter in 1998, and what he became in 2008. In 2008, I started watching him on his iPad. His blogs were frequent. He was a senior face of the parliament, senior leader from the opposition. He survived those 10 years. And not only that, there was another thing that Mr. Jaitley did that people don't realize. Mr. Jaitley was fundamental in forging that alliance, sustenance of that alliance between BJP and Nitish Kumar, and it was Mr. Jaitley who pushed Yedurappa, and he went on to become the chief minister, and he was the general secretary for the first time when Bharatiya Janata Party came to power in Karnataka in 2008.
Absolutely, indeed. And one other quick thing that I want you to dwell a bit upon, Karthike, despite his towering presence, he was not a politician with the pretensions of being a top politician in the country. He was someone who was spotted, let's say, at the Lodhi Gardens in his morning walks. And this was something that was spoken about in the political circles. And he was also perhaps, arguably one of the most approachable politicians of our times.
You see, Mr. Jaitley belonged to that breed or class of politician who did not believe in having very ostensible or very demonstrative security. Only time I think the security became little demonstrative was when he was holding the portfolio of defense and finance together. I have seen Mr. Jaitley as a leader of opposition in the same red light where I was driving my car and Mr. Jaitley in his Fortuner on his back left was looking at me and saying, hello, where are you going? So, this is Mr. Jaitley. He would knock at his window, he said, where are you going? I cannot forget that because, he was leader of opposition and I was going to meet a source of mine. And it was Mr. Jaitley as a leader of opposition in Rajya Sabha asking a reporter saying, where are you going? So, that made him very, very... Mr. Jaitley had friends. People would accuse Rajesh Shukla of Congress party of being Jaitley's man in the Congress. Why? Because 80% of the time, Rajesh Shukla would spend all his time with Arun Jaitley in BCCI.
Absolutely.
So, this was Arun Jaitley.
Absolutely indeed. Meanwhile, former Indian President and also a veteran leader of the Congress, Pranab Mukherjee, has also tweeted on the demise. He said, and I quote him here, deeply saddened at the untimely passing away of Arun Jaitley, visited him just a day before and had prayed for a speedy recovery. He was a leader with deep intellect and knowledge and also a voice of reason. He will be dearly missed. My prayers are with his family, friends and admirers. In many ways, this is an end of an era in Indian politics. One of the master strategists, one of the most learned politicians of our times, someone who could hold forth, be it on law, be it on Indian constitution, on India's economy or any other niggling matter in Indian politics. Arun Jaitley is no more. Take a look at this report.
The year was 1977. It was the emergency time. Not the right time for a 25-year-old to enter politics. Jaitley was the president of Students' Union of Delhi University a few years ago. When emergency was announced by Indira Gandhi, Jaitley was one of the first targets. In fact, Jaitley courted the arrest. He was part of the movement against corruption in 1973. By the time the emergency was lifted, when Jaitley was uncompromising with his political views, he also established a great legacy as a lawyer. Across the political spectrum, he had clients like L.K. Advani of BJP, Madhav Rao Scindia of Congress and Sharad Yadav of Janata Dal. His published writings on law are relevant till date. Jaitley became Indian government's delegate at the United Nations General Assembly in June 1998. But Jaitley the politician was needed by BJP. In 1999, Vajpayee made him the MOS of Information and Broadcasting as well as Disinvestment. This was the time when WTO brought in measures to promote divestment. When Ram Jethmalani resigned as Law Minister in 2000, BJP needed a legal mind to fill the void. Enter Arun Jaitley, the Law Minister. After the defeat in 2004, Jaitley became BJP's General Secretary. The baton had passed from Vajpayee and Advani to the next gen. And Arun Jaitley. As a leader of opposition in Rajya Sabha, Jaitley was a thorn in the flesh for Congress. Be it 2G spectrum case or the coal scam, Jaitley took the attack to the Manmohan Singh government. Upon returning to power in 2014, person for Prime Minister Modi. His achievements as finance minister and as a politician can be understood by one of his many achievements, the GST. The previous UPA government wanted to bring in GST, but it could not achieve consensus. NDA in 2014 had the numbers, but the vision to get consensus on GST was the feather in Jaitley's cap full of achievements. India's bad loan problem was addressed with a series of measures. Tax evasion was curtailed by several treaties and change in procedures. The period of high inflation came to an end. Jaitley's greatest achievements is to do all these and more despite not being a successful politician electorally. Even in 2014, Jaitley lost the Amritsar Lok Sabha elections to Captain Amrinder Singh. But he did not let the fortunes of electoral politics to affect the actual politics. The politics of policy making. And that's where the senior statesman from BJP will be. The former finance minister suffered from kidney complications in 2018. Earlier this year, Jaitley was diagnosed with soft tissue sarcoma and underwent surgery. He left a rich legacy. GST, insolvency and bankruptcy court steps to recognize bad loans and many more. The constant voice of sanity, the certainty in lawmaking, the ability to develop consensus despite having strong political views, Arun Jaitley is an icon in his own right in Indian politics. The man who made reforms the art of the possible is no more. It's rare to find a politician of his caliber in modern India. The consensus man will be missed. But his reforms will proclaim his presence, importance and legacy for decades to come. Bureau Report, Wion, World is